but you're the first point of call that actually establishes what's going to make their house structurally sound.
And how much it's going to cost too, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
G'day everyone and welcome back to another episode of Level Up. We are back in the shed for another cracking episode, and today's something a little bit different. We haven't had anyone in this particular field on the show before. I'm really excited about this because I know it's actually something that's made me a lot better builder, but it's also allowed me to educate my team on something that happens during the early stages of our job. So today's chat is all going to be about giving you an insight into everything soil with Rick from Soil Insite. So welcome, mate.
Thank you, Dwayne. Good to see you again.
Soil testing is something that I've tried or been getting a lot more involved with for probably 5 or 6 years now, but I've been enjoying it since I've met you. It's not often you come across people that are willing to put themselves out there and I guess educate you. And anyone that listens to this podcast would understand, like, I'm all about education now. I like asking questions, and
You did.
I was asking you a lot of questions. So,
yeah.
mate, I really hope that this podcast today opens up, I guess, builders' minds to actually what happens prior to them getting a sheet of paper telling them what the soil's classed as.
Yep.
But also really helping clients understand, like, I knowing what I know now, like, you're the most important step.
One of them.
Well, if like you're the like the designers started doing a bit of a design and
Yep.
like, but you're the first point of call that actually establishes what's going to make their house structurally sound.
And how much it's going to cost too, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of this come about from our process, what we do. It's obviously evolved now to what we call the PAC process, where I get paid as a consultant to get more involved with all the early stages. And part of that, a big part of that now is I try to go to every single soil test on the jobs we do, which is obviously where I've been spending a bit of time with Rick on our projects.
Yeah.
And Rick's been really good because, like, even before this process, I would turn up to soil tests, and probably one of the reasons that's made me get to where I am is I would quite often turn up, and most like on a renovation, and new homes easy, you're back onto a bare block of land and you do your thing. But with renovations, I actually got sick and tired of seeing soil tests getting done. Like, if it had a rear extension, they turn up with a truck with a drill on the back, and the site's too difficult. They can't get out the back, so they drop a hole in the front. And they're not actually testing where you're going to be building on the site.
Agreed.
So,
And I've actually been sent back to retest sites for exactly that reason. And if they do a hole at the rear, it's a pretty half-assed attempt, to be honest.
yeah, well, and so that, yeah. And then
Because it
that's
is a fair effort sometimes when you don't have a drill rig. So
well, that's another reason that we get you involved in pretty much every job we do now, especially through Aaron. Mate, your tools are fantastic. Like,
work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, because the last time I met Rick on an upcoming project, he had this awesome new tool, which is making his life a lot easier. But I was blown away by he actually. What is this? Tell us what that thing is. It's huge.
Well, basically, I've been waiting for the cordless tool industry to provide and catch up and make something that doesn't need air lines, the need to drag out heavy
Hydraulics and
motorized,
things,
electricity cables. I can walk in now with a battery pack, 54 volt, and adapt it to some augers and punch down some holes.
Yeah, like that thing was cranking, mate. It reminded me of you see on Instagram some of the American big log cabin builders, and they have those massive big cordless. They put big augers on them and driving through these huge logs. Like, that's what it reminded me of.
That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, and like that job I met you on, like that was some pretty decent going. Like I think you got down to 2.5 or a bit more meters, and it was quite dense.
I think that was pretty dry, dense residual gravels too. So it complements the old hand auger style that we used to use very well.
Yeah.
Where that hand auger is really difficult and hard, which is why soil testers give up.
Yeah.
This complements it perfectly and actually makes the hole easy.
Yeah, and just punches into it.
It does.
So
yeah,
I really want to, like I said, I want to get across to builders that I think this is an area you need to get more involved in. And so for me, and we're going to talk all things soil today. Rick's going to tell us what soil means and why what he looks for and all those types of things. But for me, it's played a huge role, I guess, in my business. One, I now know what to look for when my team's on site starting the project, because like you explained to me on site, like this is this particular soil and this is dense and this is what we're looking for and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
So when we start building the job and our guys start doing the excavation work and the footings and stuff, I can explain to my team what I found the day that I was on site with Rick, and then it makes it easier for them, like especially when we're boring pier holes. And the other thing is when we get the engineering through and the engineer says, found 300 mil into stiff, silty clay or whatever, I can sort of reference the sections of the designer's done and the depths that's shown on your soil test and sort of figure out my site cuts and
Yeah.
how much rock we're going to hit and all those types of things.
Which makes it easier because you've come along and made the effort to have a look, whereas a lot of engineers and builders don't. So if you can be pretty accurate and they've got the soil report with the bore logs, hopefully that generally is enough.
Yeah.
When you start digging and all the colours match up and the types of soil match up, that's the aim.
Yeah.
Of what we do.
So to go back a little bit, like you're looking for a certain strength, aren't you? Like, is that what a soil test is?
Yeah. We're looking for soil type, whether it's natural to start off with or fill. We're describing the type of soil, logging the different layers, whether it's reactive or non-reactive, trying to find bedrock, hopefully, if it's within the vicinity of 3 meters.
Yeah.
Taking lab samples, doing strength tests while we're on site, just generally having a look around for problems, to be perfectly honest, and trying to give a good, accurate soil profile.
Yeah, because ultimately the information you're providing is what's going to give the house integrity for the next 30, 40, 50, 100 years.
I've always thought of it as no surprises to the engineer or the builder when you come on site.
Yeah.
Just have a good look around and provide a good report, so everyone knows up front what they're likely to encounter. Yeah,
because it's not only like that's a big part of it, but you're also assessing when you're on site, like the existing structure, overland flow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Drainage is important, subsurface drainage is important as well. Obviously, strength of soils, any other influences like underground pipes, any retaining walls that are close, anything that's been demolished, any obstructions you're likely going to hit. Sometimes rock is a problem if it's way too shallow and way too strong. If you've got some excavating or pools to put in, it's good for you and the engineer and the owners to know that it's probably going to cost a little bit more to achieve the depths you need. So
sorry to interrupt, guys, but we've got to thank our sponsors, because without them, we can't keep delivering you this incredible podcast. So massive shout out to DPS Constructions, Quoties, Live Life Build, and 44 Gallon Films. Make sure you go and check those guys out, support them so that we can keep delivering you this incredible podcast. Another thing that I think makes you good at what you do, like you're looking at the drawing. So like that last one I met you at, we were sort of stepping out the location of the new build. So this one we're looking at, this last one is a knockdown and rebuild, and it had a pool and things. So we were stepping it out, and you were asking me, how deep do you need to go here, and where's the pool going to be? Because obviously if you do the soil test in the area that I need to dig the pool, I can quote it accurately because I know exactly what I'm going to expect when I get down 2 meters or 2.5 meters deep.
Exactly right. No surprises is the thing.
Yeah. And so you also sort of look at trees, don't you? Like the size of trees, does that play a part?
Yeah, tree classifies the site. It's quite important, I guess.
Yeah. So what a tree's important because big trees pull a lot of moisture. Like
that's a tricky one. That really is a tricky one. So in the early stages, when trees became part of soil reports, the whole idea was they were drying out soil in an area, particularly if there were trees on one part of the site and not on the other. We've since found out there's a whole heap of other factors that they do. They can actually stabilise the soil moisture, whereas the other area isn't stabilised. Can put direct root pressure on retaining walls and footings and stuff like that. The tree influence is totally dependent on the type of soil and the soil classification too. So the more reactive a soil is, the more influenced trees are going to be further away. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think it's all really important to know. Like I said, I think for me as a builder, like we need to know more.
Yeah, and it's hard not to classify a site as a problem these days with trees.
I know back in the early days, I would get a soil report and it would say, fill, and I think, well, there can't be fill there.
Sometimes it does surprise you. Absolutely.
Like you think, and like now, obviously getting a bit older and wiser, but like obviously building works have been going on for a long time, and like people put roads through, they build subdivisions, and I guess now I get taking more notice. Like you see them building a subdivision, and man, they move mountains.
They do, and they did back in the day too. In the old days, there's some old areas that you wouldn't think there's fill. Yeah. Particularly Brisbane's a hilly area. Yeah. And there's a lot of gullies, and a lot of them have been filled in the backyards. Yeah. Between the two houses, the two blocks. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me anymore either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is quite amazing where you will find fill. So obviously fill is very different because it depends whether it's just been knocked off the top of a hill and pushed it into a gully, or whether it's been rolled in layers. Like,
Yeah.
because even the way that fill is placed is going to show a different reading, isn't it?
Absolutely. I guess no matter how much you compact fill, it's always going to settle.
Yeah.
So to identify it is the most important thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I've met an engineer who likes to sit footings in uncontrolled fill.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot around Brisbane, little localised dumping. Back in the day, my granddad did it. My uncles and all that did it. You just dig a hole and chuck all your tins and glass bottles in the backyard, and I found plenty of that as well.
Yeah.
That's right where a pool or an extension needs to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I've hit old cars.
Yeah. I was like,
car bodies.
mate, I always remember the story. Like, I was always on the job site with my old man growing up. He was a painter, and yeah, it's from I don't know, 7, 8 years old. I was if he was at work on a weekend, I was always there. And I remember a story over at Redcliffe when the very first stages of Newport, the canal estate, was built, and there was stories going around of builders like coming in and boring all their pier holes and backing the concrete up, and the concrete just disappearing, and they'd drill through the roof of an old car shell, and basically they filled the car up with
I
concrete.
hadn't heard that one.
So
wow.
yeah, you never know what's going to be down in the ground, especially in those reclaimed areas.
Yeah, that would have been a surprise.
Yeah.
No surprises is the whole aim of soil testing, I guess.
Yeah. So how many holes should you be doing on the average job site?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the extension, the house. Minimum of 2.
Yeah.
And if you need more, you just keep doing more.
Yeah.
You're looking for a consistent soil profile.
Yeah.
Basically, most of the effort is to get to the job these days. To actually do extra holes isn't that much of an effort to,
Well, that's
cover
another thing I
everyone's
like
bases.
about you, mate, because
So,
if you do a hole and it's not like, or you see some inconsistencies, like you do the other hole, like
yeah, absolutely. You get to know your areas and your surface geologies too, so you know if something's not right.
yeah,
It's a feeling, it's an experience thing. It's just looking at the lie of the land and the area and what's happening. Absolutely.
I imagine your job takes you some pretty cool locations, mate. Like you've got a 4-wheel drive, and I would imagine you get to use it.
I've just come from out past Cunnamulla.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, actually. Got some clients that send me out west for communication tower geotech drilling. So St. George, Moree, that was recently. All the islands are good ones. I've had to do soil testing on Moreton Island via boat a couple of times. Obviously, I've been to Fraser Island a couple of times in Stratty.
So you're getting paid to go to places that most people go on their holiday.
I am. And do 4-wheel driving and all that stuff that goes
Do you
with
throw a rod in the back?
Yes. And I've told me boss about it too.
Because you're the first one there, aren't you? Like,
yeah.
But when you go to most of those remote locations, like, is it a lot of the time there wouldn't be a track, wouldn't there? Like, how do you know on a larger property where to go?
Good directions from the owners or some sort of a site plan these days. Back in the day, you'd just figure it out and use your common sense. Like, I'm not going to build down here where there's no view.
Yeah.
So you get on the phone and go, site plans are important.
Yeah.
Just distances from boundaries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is always very helpful.
Yeah. Actually, I noticed, I'm not sure if it was on the last one you did or the one before, but you do the rods, don't you?
Divining, yes.
Yeah, to find the water.
Well, not just water. I'm able to pick up Telstra, optic fibre,
Yeah.
water lines, everything basically I don't want to hit.
So is that a frequency thing or something? Like,
I guess everything's energy, and if I find something that is in a line, I just do not drill there.
yeah.
It saves myself and my clients a whole heap of hassle.
So is that something that the first thing you do is walk the site and identify any problems?
Safe
possible
spot,
problems?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Safe spot. Sometimes where the engineers want me to drill, I just physically can't drill because there's concrete there or pipes that you got to stay away from. So
no, that's pretty
That's
cool.
why I do it.
Yeah. And how do you learn that? Like, is that something you learn being a soil tester to do that?
Yeah. I guess I picked it up. Our family comes from a dairy farm, so a fair bit of drilling for bores and stuff like that, and you just watch the diviners go around and they chuck you the rods and it works for you. And it's like, okay, and you think nothing of it until you grow up and I might try that, see if I can find the water line, and then you find something else. That works. So, yeah.
So is it Is it something that anyone can pick up, or is it a
You'll
bit
be
of a...
surprised. Did I hand you the rods that
No,
day? I
no.
generally hand the rods,
I'll
and
be asking you next time.
yeah, have a go. I've got plenty of spare ones in the car too.
Yeah,
Plenty of owners and other builders have a go because you've hit pipes that you didn't want to
yeah,
hit.
yeah,
Yeah, it works for them.
yeah, yeah.
So
Right.
if
Might
that
be
saves
some.
people, breaking pipes and going through Telstra lines and that sort of stuff,
Might have to get them for all the boys. We can do a walk before we
yeah,
start dipping
10,
footy.
10 cents each. It's a pretty good way of saving money.
All right, we're going to add that to the list next time we're on site. I'm going to
Yeah,
hit you up to
dividing rods.
teach me how to do that. So yeah, I think it's a really, really important part of the job, and it's definitely something that as a builder, like I wasn't taught anything about soil testing, getting my licensing, or like even my first few roles I had with other builders, like it was just never discussed. Like we got given a set of drawings and away you went and you built the job. And I think it's just something that, like, I'm very interested in everything across the board from start to finish now. But like I said, I really think it's the most important part of a job, and it's really overlooked. I'm sure there's a lot of clients out there that have no idea at all what the soil test is for, or how the engineers come up with what it is. There's probably a few builders that don't understand it.
Yeah, it's funny. Builders can be working next door to me, and I've never seen a soil test before, and they'll pop their head over and have a look and ask what the DCP is and what we're looking for, and which is surprising to me, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, mate, I don't know. It's just so to be a builder. There is just this massive variety of specialists that you really have to have a little bit of knowledge on every single thing, and it's probably one of those things, you don't know what you don't know. Like the engineer's giving you a set of drawings, it's got a soil test with it, and you just dig the holes to what he says and away you go. But like I said, for me it's been really helpful with, and I think it obviously is a big part of the quality job that we deliver, and just teaching our teams on site, because we do on our jobs, we do all the excavation work ourselves. So and I don't know, like I think I learned the hard way in my early years in a few situations just how much liability a builder has, and just making sure we go the extra mile and we hit the rock, or we hit the density that you're after. And by you teaching me the color of the soil, and like I think it was a job over at Wynnum, like there's been a couple of times where you've like picked up the soil in your hand and like said to me, oh, I see this is gravelly, like this, we don't want this, like we need to go a bit deeper. And like,
absolutely.
I'm very keen to know more about the tools you use, and as a soil tester, give us a bit of an insight into it overall.
I guess we use a drill rig. It's the most efficient way to look at the dirt. You can do a soil test with an excavator. There's a few ways to do it. The most efficient way is a small round auger, and you have a look at the soil as you go up. We've got density testers, dynamic cone penetrometers to test densities of soil, generally for non-cohesive gravels, sands, silts. We've got pocket penetrometers for clay, cohesive soils to get an idea. Bigger geotech work, we have special penetrometer tests, which is a larger 80 kilogram weight with different rods, just a few different ways to get soil strength. They're obviously reported in the soil report, so the engineer knows the depths where he's going to get consistent bearing capacity for a long, it's just long-term support, basically, is what I'm trying to say. For the house. Can
we run through each of them and just give a bit more explanation? So the pocket
penetrometer designed for clay, so we try and get a nice, as least disturbed as possible clay sample, and it's just a little calibrated KPA reader, which gives us kilograms per cubic centimetres, which then can be converted to tonnes by the engineer.
So you push that into the clay.
It is, physically.
And that gives you a reading by the pressure you're pushing on it and stuff. Because I've seen you use that a few times. I think I've hit you up, where can I buy one of them? And I still haven't. But I didn't actually realise until we had the conversation before, it's only for clay.
It is designed for clay, cohesive soils,
And then so the other one, like the weight you drop.
The DCP penetrometer is basically a calibrated weight, a set drop, and that is across industry, basically worldwide. A certain angled cone head, and we drop the weight and count the blows per 100 mil, which then gives engineers something to work with as well for friction values and bearing capacities.
Well, again, that's something I need just through the continuous conversations we have on each job now. Like I didn't realise, and I should have, but you explain like the weights, did you say it's worldwide, like that thing?
We our standards are based on England and America, so it's pretty much standard across the world, the equipment that we use.
Yeah. So
Certainly throughout Australia and New Zealand.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the point on the end's the same. The rod's the same.
Yep.
The height that gets dropped from the same.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very interesting tool. Like, it's amazing now that I know more about it, like how much information you can get just by dropping a weight and seeing
Yeah.
how many blows it takes to go into the ground 100 millimeters.
Yeah, yeah. And it is designed for non-cohesive soil, so the sands and the gravels and the silts.
Yeah.
Various moistures of clay, it's not very accurate, which is why the pocket penetrometer gives you more accurate readings.
Yeah.
But it does certainly give you an indication of what you're up against when you're about to dig. And it's particularly good in fill, I feel, because you rarely get a consistent reading per 100 mil until you hit the natural. And it really gives you a good idea of the depth you should be targeting, whether that's 1/2 a metre, or 2 metres, to find the natural. And you confirm that when you dig the hole.
Yeah, right.
As well.
And so what's the two different, are you looking for two different things? Because like the auger's telling you something different to what the pentrometer's, I can't even say it. What's it called? Pentrometer? DCP?
DCP, yeah.
Like they're telling you two different things, aren't they?
The auger.
Like what you're putting the auger down for and what you're testing the weight and the blows per 100 mil for, are they two different things?
They are two different things. The DCP and the pocket is specifically a strength.
Yeah.
The auger, putting the auger down, is literally to log the soil, grab your samples and have a look and determine whether it's fill or natural, non-reactive or reactive. You do get a feel when you use a drill rig for a little while of the strength that you're working with, and you know if it's soft, and you know if it's stiffening up, and you know if it's hard.
Yeah.
But that isn't the end all and be all. You do need to do some testing to prove it. Yeah, for the engineers. Yeah.
And so what's the blows like? That's more of strength, is it?
Yes, strength and friction. Yeah. Yep.
And then and then you've got your big 54 volt. Like
that's just another means to look at the soil.
Yeah, look, we'll definitely
check it out before you guys get there and give you something to work with.
For a cordless tool, like that thing was cranking,
and it has been a godsend to me. It has. I've had, like I think I mentioned before, there was a localized. I went through bottles and brick rubble from the builders who built this house 40 years ago. Yeah. And the owners knew it was there and didn't tell me until I finished the job, and they heard me struggling. And the only way I could have got through that was with my little power auger. Yeah. Just the old school hand auger that you twist physically would not have. And a crowbar, you just wouldn't have got through.
Yeah, no, it's blown away.
Proven its weight in gold.
To see that.
It's awesome.
I think they're going to be, everyone's going to be looking for them, mate, to get them in the back.
Yeah, I was hoping to keep that secret. That was my little advantage.
Mate, your advantage being on this podcast, so and telling the world about soil.
Yeah.
So, mate, how is this, like, how do you get into soil testing? Like, what makes you want to be a soil tester?
Good question. Finished high school, wasn't into university. I knew I was an outdoor guy, but my first couple of jobs weren't actually outdoors, so I didn't last very long on them. Found a company advertising for soil testing. Yeah. I applied, I got the job down at Underwood, and I was pretty lucky because the boss who employed me ended up starting up the training course for soil testing. Yeah. So I learnt off a pretty good guy to start off with in the first couple of years. Yeah. I just liked it. It's outdoors. You get to, it's pretty physical. We had some bigger drill rigs back then doing some bigger geotech stuff, and a lot of cracked houses. So there was a lot of physical stuff with hand as well. And I just guess I fell into it and I did leave, but I'm back and I enjoy it.
Yeah, and you've got your own rig now, like it's your own business.
Yeah.
Soil Insite.
Yeah, well, my last two bosses retired on me, and I thought, next time I lose my job, it's going to be me retiring. So I took the leap, bought my boss out of all of his equipment, drill rig and lab equipment, and bits and pieces.
Yeah, mate, I think it's unreal. Like I really
had to go.
Got a lot of time for people that take the punt and have a crack themselves and get involved.
Yeah, the timing was right. It was good. Yeah.
And you touched on before, like you go out west and stuff. Like so you I love camping and getting out in the beach or the bush or something. Like you're out there on your own. Like I know you're working, but man, it must feel good. Like you get to see some cool stuff.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Oh, I've been to Carnarvon Gorge. I've been to all the national parks basically, helping out upgrade grade facilities and sewage treatment plants and stuff like that. I meet some wonderful people every day
Yeah.
as well, get to learn off them, do some interesting work at interesting sites. I remember I did a job for the police force up north side here, not too far, I don't think, from memory, about 25 years ago, and it was, I don't know, it was a weird job. It was for a dog training facility,
Yeah.
and their training was to find dead bodies. So you can imagine, and it's like, oh, okay, how do you do that? And then the police officer said, well, we use dead bodies. So I looked around and went, am I going to hit anything? He says, no, you're right. So interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Learn something new every day.
absolutely.
So you just touched on it then, sewage treatment plant.
Yeah.
Because again, it's something that I've had to learn along the journey of being a builder. But like, if you're building on acreage or rural,
Yeah.
your septic is designed depending on what your soil is, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the size of the house, bedrooms, number of people.
Yeah,
But basically the permeability of the soil. So you've got to get all of your water from the house that you use treated and dispersed on your land safely.
Yeah.
I think everyone in the old days has had a septic system that's gone smelly, and you walk in a certain part of the yard and you go up to your knees in sludge. That is a failing septic system, so we're trying to prevent that. So we do permeability testing as well, just the drainage of the soil.
So if you were building an acreage home, like, is it 2 tests, or does a soil test tell you that as well?
No, 2 different tests. Absolutely.
So you have to, we have to inform you, hey, this is acreage, it's going to have a septic system.
Yeah.
We need that tested, and we need the foundations data as well.
Yeah. And a lot of the companies and plumbers who install them and set them up have their own designing and testing. Some do, some don't. It just depends on who you build with. And
So you do a lot, don't you? So you've got the lab, you do your own.
I do, yeah.
So what's involved? I've got no idea about that side of it. Like, what's involved?
Lab testing. Minimum 3 days for a lab test.
Yeah.
There's a few ways to go about it. I do Atterberg limits, linear shrinkages, and shrink swell testing. Shrink swell testing is you put basically a 50 mil tube and you get an undisturbed sample, and that is designed only for clay, where you can push in.
Yeah.
Extract it, set it in a apparatus. The swell machine actually measures to 0.02 of a millimeter. So you inundate that process with a set weight, which simulates, I guess, house weight. I think it's 25 kPa, and you just read off the swell. With that same sample, you also do a shrink sample. So you're basically measuring how much it shrinks.
Yeah.
So you're getting both ends of the story and applying a figure, calculating a shrink swell figure at the end of it. The Atterberg limit is basically you got to break the soil down to its finest element, basically a dust.
Yeah.
And then you're finding the wet point, you're finding the dry point similar, and the difference between gives you the reactivity with the linear shrinkage.
So this is getting technical.
Yeah, well, that all is. You only do that, and you have to apply the lab results to the soil profile, which is why we have a drill rig and why we dig holes. So you can't just calculate a soil profile 100% if it's not 100% reactive.
Yeah.
So if we've got so much non-reactive, we can't calculate that in the potential soil movement. So that's why we drill, that's why we log, that's why we have a look at the soil. A few other factors come in. If we know we're going to cut that non-reactive layer out to level the block, well, then we can apply that depth of clay with the lab test and calculate soil for the engineer.
Yeah. So do you, and look, I'm only just thinking back to jobs that I was a contractor on and wasn't the builder on a long time ago. And I remember doing one job where it was in, I can't remember exactly, it was in a city suburb. We started doing the site cut, and it wasn't a very big site cut, but basically we only got down a couple hundred millimeters, and it was all fly ash. It was all garbage.
Yep.
And like, my boss made this huge deal out of it because he hadn't, so the whole lot had to be excavated. Like, I can't remember how many truckloads come out of there, and then we had to import better quality fill. Like, that's something that should have been picked up on a soil test, isn't it?
That stuff, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So like, if that's so I don't know what went wrong on that particular scenario, but yeah, I would imagine if that sort of thing come up, that would be the engineer would say like
Retest, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, in saying that, so we've actually had that come up on site. Like Aaron and I have had, and I think it's been from you, where well, we've had an engineer say, "Oh, look, we're actually going to have to do another test once the existing house is removed and you've done the site cut."
Yep.
So is that why that's coming into play?
Yeah, it does change the potential soil movement for the better or for the worse.
Yeah.
It can work both ways. Obviously, when you take out footings and slabs and you remove a house, there's going to be some old footings that are in ground creating loose soil, which potentially can be a magnet for water.
Yeah.
Further softening soil. Definitely.
Yeah, so it's really worth
Recommended.
as a builder, it's really worth us having these conversations with our clients, isn't it? And saying, like obviously depending on the job, but if you've got a fairly substantial site cut, or you've got a house that maybe is covering a lot of the site and you can't get exactly where you need to be, like possibly saying, look, once we've removed the house, we do the site cut, we would recommend getting another soil test done.
It'd be great to just get a preliminary soil report so you can work with something, get some sort of figures on paper and an idea of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But totally recommend a soil test.
Yeah.
Once it's clear, once it's leveled.
Yeah, and I guess that's look, it could end up in a scenario where it's better than expected and the engineer might change or something. Like, do you think
I've had that, absolutely. I've retested and it saved clients a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because you've taken a lot of the clay and you've brought the rock closer to the footings, so there's less potential reactivity. Yeah, it can work both ways, absolutely.
So can you educate myself, but as well as our listeners, like there's a lot of different types of soil, isn't there? Like, well, what's the best soil to build in? I guess. Let's start with that.
Sand.
Yeah, I was always
where I live in Margate is a real friable sandy clay.
Yeah.
Not very reactive, doesn't soften easily, easy to dig, easy to work with, grows great vegetables. That's a pretty good place. The best soil, I guess, would be sand, but sands have issues as well.
Yeah. So what have you got? So you like the ones like sand,
gravel, silt, clay, gravel. Yeah.
So what is silt? Did you just say silt?
Silt, yeah. So basically all the soil comes from bedrock, and as it weathers and breaks down, it then becomes gravel, which weathers and breaks down basically and becomes sand, which weathers and breaks down becomes silt, which becomes even weathered and broken down and becomes clay. So it's determined by the size of the soil.
I hope everyone else is excited about soil as I am.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
On the job.
Yeah, mate. So I find that incredibly interesting. So obviously that's over the years as the Earth's formed, and then wear and tear from weather and
rain, wind, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's residual soils, which are the soils broken down from the rock, which still exist in place above that rock. Then you can imagine if you're on a hill, it can get washed down. So we've got colluvial soils on the sides of hill, and then we've got the alluvial stuffs like we have out the Brisbane airport area, the floodplains.
Yeah,
it's all just silted up from creeks and rivers depositing.
Yeah. So another thing I've definitely learned just being a builder for so many years, like you can tell a little bit just by location, can't you? So
absolutely.
Generally the higher up you are,
the better,
and the harder the soil's going to be. In a valley, it's more than likely going to be silty stuff.
Yep.
If you're out up here in Brisbane, like Sandgate or somewhere, a lot of that's reclaimed or mud flat.
Yep, sand flats as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, ultimately, you're looking for you want the house founded on the most solid material possible, don't you? Is that right, or the less reactive?
Well, the most economically
to
provide that long-term support, because an engineer could peer to China and have a stable house and cost you a fortune, but you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
So if we're pretty good at what we do, they can be confident that you can have minimal footings and still have a stable house.
Yeah.
And everywhere in between.
Yeah.
Brisbane's a tricky geology area. It's very hilly. There's lots of sedimentary rock, lots of intrusive metamorphic rock.
Yeah.
And that breaks down into a whole heap of different soils.
Yeah.
So then we've got obviously Ipswich with its mining and a few areas of slope instability around the Gold Coast and Brisbane. And
have you ever drilled a hole and gone into a mine shaft?
I have.
Have you?
I have. Early on days, we were specifically wanting to find it because the house needed to be restumped, and we did find the hole.
Yeah.
3 meters underground, which was a bit shallow.
Shivers.
Yeah.
So what happens with that? Like,
I didn't know. I was only pretty green back
Yeah.
then when I first started. I don't know what happened with that.
you'd have to bridge it or make that. Yeah, I don't know. That's a story for
Yeah,
another day, maybe.
yeah.
But
Shift the house possibly, or demolish it and don't build.
yeah, yeah.
Again.
Yeah, well, look, I've heard stories. Like a lot of my family are up Gympie way, and obviously that's well known for its gold mining and stuff up around that area. Like I've heard stories that like it gets. Well, it used to get flooded quite regularly up there, and every time a flood comes through, it opens up another, like someone else's yard goes in.
Yeah.
So,
which I think was the issue. I think in 2011 in Collingwood Park, just outside of Ipswich. There, I think the tunnels got inundated with water and disturbed a fair bit there, and they had some more subsidence.
Yeah. So is there particular areas like that are mapped? Like, do you have?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of work's gone into the mining. The new Ipswich upgrade. They had a nice chemical compound filled in all of the tunnels underneath that before they started to make sure that the money they were spending on that highway was going to stay like that.
Yeah.
Definitely mapped. Slope stability's got a pretty good overlay. In all the councils around southeast Queensland.
Yeah. So does the data that you get from jobs, does that go anywhere? Does that get tracked? Like,
I wish it would.
Yeah.
I don't think it does. In-house to every, I guess, engineer. I mean, they would make it available.
Yeah.
To councils and bureaus and whatever. No, I don't think it does, but it's an in-house thing. We've all got our own records of the jobs we've done to refer to, in that street or across the road.
Those are business opportunities. So. Hit me up if I'll have a share in that business.
Yeah.
Data's everything.
Just got to get every other company on board together. Yeah.
So I think like everything I do is about education. Like, and we did a job for ourselves probably coming up 4 years ago. We did some townhouses over at Redcliffe at Scarborough.
Yep.
And I did a few videos on it. One of the videos went nuts, and it was our very first day on site. I ended up with an $18,000 variation on my own project. So it was on the flats down near the marina.
Yep.
And it was before we were using you, and we'd had soil tests done. I think we'd had 4 done on the site. It was quite a large site, and all the soil tests only went between sort of, I think it was 1,200 and 2 meters. So we'd spoken to, we got 3 quotes from screw pier companies, and 2 of them had said, "Oh, we've done like jobs literally," or one of them said, "I've literally done the job 2 doors up. I know it's going to go to 2.5, 3 meters." And I said, "Well, allow that." And so we gave them the job. They had some local knowledge. We thought we'd covered ourselves because obviously if it didn't go to that depth, we wouldn't have been charged the full amount. Anyway, the very first day on the job, like they lifted the 3rd pier they put in, ended up going to about 13 meters.
Yeah.
And so
wow, that's.
And look, I get it. So that job was, that block of land I think was 60 meters long by 20 meters wide maybe.
Yep.
And the piers across that site in the locations of the buildings and the pools ranged, I think the shallowest one was 1,100 mil, and the deepest one was just over 13 meters.
Wow, that's a big difference.
And it was, so we would literally have, the piers were I think maximum 2.2 meter centers or something.
Yep.
And we would literally have like 2 or 3 piers in a row or like side by side that were around that 1.5 2 meter mark, and then the next one would just disappear.
Wow.
So like you can't determine everything, can you, by a few holes? So I think, and like in my guts I knew that, like it's reclaimed ground, it's all that mud flat area.
Yeah.
So, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that because the bedrock is like up and down? Like it's basically I don't even know what you'd describe it as.
I don't know. On the coast, I don't think the bedrock would be that severe. To me, it sounds like it could have been like an old creek infill.
Yeah.
Silted over.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, actually, well, it probably is, because back in the day there would have been a lot of water coming out from all the mangroves and swamp areas around there. So that probably make more sense. But like again, I did these videos on it to explain it to people. Like my own job as a builder, we did everything correct. We got 4 P holes. Our peer company had done jobs like literally 50 meters away.
Yeah, right.
And we still had.
Well, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, but like you can't avoid, like occasionally you're going to have those situations, aren't you?
Occasionally, yeah. It's good to know what you want to build.
Yeah.
I actually were working for my colleagues. We had a 10 meter hole and a 6 meter hole with SPT testing. on a Nerang River, on a big block. It was being split, basement put in 3 stories above with suspended slabs. So we wanted a standard soil test wasn't going to cut it.
Yeah.
We did the deep hole first, and knowing what they were putting on top, our strength results, we just stopped work so we didn't waste money and referred to the engineer. So it's always good to have a bit of experience of what you're building and what the engineers are likely going to have and what bearing that they're going to need to have some sort of idea of giving them information that they can use.
Yeah. So why did you stop?
Because the soil strength wasn't anywhere near what I thought was going to be enough to hold up a basement and 3 stories with suspended slabs.
Yeah.
Just from working with engineers for a long time.
Yeah. So what happens in that scenario?
Well, we could have done the 6-metre holes and charged them our money, and it would have been waste of time because 6-metre holes.
Yeah.
The depth, I think we're going to try for about 20, see how we go.
Yeah.
See if we can find some coffee rock or something down there.
Yeah. So you're going to, so is this a recent job?
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, we're just waiting for confirmation to go back and do some deeper testing.
Oh, so you've started the job. You're
decided
concerned about
absolutely
it not holding the weight. So you've informed.
We couldn't get onto the engineer right there on the day while we were at 10 metres. He was busy. So
but you've educated the client or the engineer or whatever, and now they've been able to make some decisions, and they now want to spend more money to do the test.
Yep, that's the process at the moment, just between the owner and the engineer.
Yeah.
Just explaining, why.
I think that's
a lot of money.
Well, that's where it pays to use quality people like yourself.
Yeah. It's good to know what's being built. I would have loved to have done that. I've done some work around Redcliffe.
Yeah, well, mate, look, I like I said, we actually had another one for a client in at Wellesby Street, New Farm, and I learnt from that job. The soil test was really good there because we got them back, but it was driven copper log, and it was a horrible little site, and we caused all sorts of trouble. Like we had to bring this huge semi in and this big pole driving machine.
Yep.
And because of all the character codes there, like we had to keep the cottage. So like we had to slide this cottage all the way to the back of the site, do all the piering for the pool and the house and everything, and then drag this house back over the top, lift it up. Like it was a massive job.
Wow.
But these copper logs, like even that, like they just amaze me, like the process and how they join them together and then belt the sleeve, and they like it's awesome. But same deal, like. So on that particular job, it was all quoted on based on the soil tests, the copper logs going to 18 metres.
Wow.
And most of them ended up going between sort of 22 and 28 metres. And I learnt, well, similar to what you just said then, I learnt from that job. I can't remember if it was the engineer when he came to do his inspection, or we may have run the soil tester, but he said a lot of that area there was the same. Like there's old valleys where water would have run down to the Brisbane River.
Yep.
And they basically just been full of silt. So like even in the width of a 10 metre block of land, you could have a valley where along the side could be shallow, and then through the middle you followed the creek.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
I've had sites where it's been an S-class, which is slightly reactive bugger all. The block next door is a highly reactive site.
Yeah.
And that's just from the rock shelf really dropping off and exposing that clay, basically.
Yeah, no, well, mate, look, I definitely find it very interesting. I think, like I said right at the beginning, I think more builders probably, I don't know, it's up to them, but I feel for me as a builder, it's made me a better builder knowing more about your role and what you do and what you look for. Like I guess for anyone out there listening that may be considering being a soil tester, like have you got any advice to them? Like it's a good career?
Well, I've enjoyed it. You get to see a lot of the country, meet nice people. You do work outdoors. You do, in a sense, as an employee, because I was an employee for most of my career. You get left to do your own thing as long as you're responsible and you can sort of schedule your jobs and get them done. Change the schedule, whatever suits. It's a good job.
Yeah, and like any job, I guess
it's not the hardest job in the world.
Yeah,
but
well, it sounds like it can be a pretty enjoyable job.
Yeah, it is. I mean, 5 years into your job, it gets pretty boring. But then you go past it and you realise why you're doing it and what you're doing it for and who you're doing it for.
Yeah,
and you can go to that next level where you get into the geology side of things, which helps you, identify soils, and you build up a nice little surface geology, blueprint of Southeast Queensland in your head. And then it doesn't become boring because you're sort of involved in it that next extra step.
Yep. And what about like as a builder or an architect designer, like what information should we be giving you to make you give up or get the best information back?
An elevation is good, so we can see, how many stories and what you're doing. Just general site plan.
Yep.
So we can get our test in the location where it
Yep.
needs to be. Somewhere around, within a metre of the footings would be great.
Yeah. So you're really after that first round of preliminary design. Like you want a site plan, floor plan, and an idea of what the house is going to look like. 2-story, 3-story.
Me
basement.
personally, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always carry extra augers to go deeper if just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, mate, look, I think you've offered a lot of value today. I really hope builders, clients have got a lot out of listening to it. I think I really think there is so much more in what you do, and like people just skim over the top of it. They get given a soil test and don't think any more of it. But I know for myself as a builder and running a good business, it's helping educate my team. Not only that, meet good blokes like yourself.
Yeah, we do.
Makes it interesting when we're on site. Let you have a bit of a chat. Everyone's on the same page. But look, if you're a builder or a client out there, you're looking for a soil test in southeast Queensland or maybe out west,
Perfect.
make sure you give Rick a call at Soil Insite. So, and yeah, I hope we've given you some insights into the soil today and what happens and how it works, and ultimately how what Rick does really plays an enormous role in the final product and the integrity of the product and how long it's going to last. So look, as usual, guys, if you've liked what you've heard, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all those types of things. We'll give you some details for Rick at the end of this video, and look forward to seeing you in the shed next time. Cheers, guys.
Are you ready to build smarter, live better, and enjoy life? Then head over to livelikebuild.com/elevate to get started.
Everything discussed during the Level Up podcast with me, Dwayne Pearce, is based solely on my own personal experiences and those experiences of my guests. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only, and any reliance on the information provided in this podcast is done at your own risk. We recommend that you obtain your own professional advice in respect to the topics discussed during this podcast.